I have this data set in Mathematica displayed here, and I've saved it with the name lowercase data. And my goal for this video is to do something very simple. I just want to get what's the median value of this horsepower column. So let's first see how to get this horsepower column. Okay, it's the fourth column. So one way I can get it is say, give me every row in the fourth column. But that's definitely not the best way when you have header names like we did in this particular data set. So it's definitely better to call the column by its name. So in this case, the name was horsepower. So here's another way to get those 397 numbers. Okay, well, I guess we're basically done with the video, right? But no, something went wrong. So what went wrong in this? And it's really useful to be able to troubleshoot this kind of error when you're working with data in Mathematica. So let me show you what the problem is. It says it's expecting real numbers. Well, aren't these real numbers? So let's try, how about table? And let me use the first type of iterator. Okay, I find it difficult to work with data sets in Mathematica using the second type of iterator. So that's why I'm using the first type here. So for each of the rows, okay, it'll be represented row number 1, row number 2. Give me this horsepower number. And so this will be basically the same as before. And let's check what are these things. So this here, it's representing the number 130, the number 165, and so on. And let me just make sure those are actually numbers by wrapping that phrase with this word head. Okay, well, looks like they're numbers. Let's delete the duplicates from this list. So now we can see that even though they're mostly numbers, they're not all numbers. So what are the ones that are not numbers? Well, let's check that. Let's say cases. And I can do data all horsepower. And I can say, show me everything in there that is a string. So here we see that there are 5 of these question mark strings in that data. So how can I delete those? Well, here's one easy way. I can just say delete cases rather than cases. So what does this represent? Remember, this underscore represents a pattern, and we usually do something like x underscore, and that says anything, call it x. Here, if I have underscore and then followed by a head name, like this string name, that's saying, in this case, delete anything inside of this. Okay, it's actually still a data set. Anything inside of this data set that's a string. And now let's try to compute the median. Okay, yep, that worked. Let's see one more way to do it. So what if I want to delete all of the rows where the horsepower column is a string? So here's a way we can do that. I could do delete cases, data of all the things in data, such that if I look at its horsepower column, so the strategy right now is a little different from the previous. In the previous one, I was working with a list of the horsepower entries. Here I'm working with the entire rows, and so I'm saying for that, so x in this case is going to represent an entire row, and I'm saying if this, and let's use the function string q. So if this is a string, all the rows such that the horsepower entry in that row is a string, then I want to delete that. So let's name this, how about new data? And I'll suppress the output with a semicolon. And now let's check if this one works better than the previous one. So let's try to do new data. Give me all the rows and the horsepower column. And let's take the median of that. Okay, so there that worked. And remember that that didn't work back when I was doing it with the original data. So what did we do? We deleted the rows where the horsepower entry in that row was a string. We named the resulting data set new data. Okay, let's check that it's really a data set. And now there might be bad entries in some of the other columns, but now at least this horsepower column is corrected.